ABC, where I'll be seeing you in the Green Hornet. I am Bruce Lee, inviting you to join me every Friday night on most of these ABC stations.
Another challenge for the Green Hornet. His aide, Cato, and their rolling arsenal, the Black Beauty. And now, to protect the rights and lives of decent citizens, rides the Green Hornet.
Welcome back, everyone, to an all-new episode of the Hornet Sting podcast. It's the owner-publisher of the Daily Sentinel here, John S. Drew, and as we start to wrap up our reviews here of the Green Hornet from 1966 to 1967, I'm joined in our near conclusion by the District Attorney himself, Mr. Jim Beard. Hey, Jim.
Hey. The word for the day is penultimate.
That's right, penultimate. I completely forgot.
The penultimate story and the penultimate episode of the Hornet Sting.
Yeah.
Unless we do the movie, unless we do the Seth Rogen movie, right?
The Seth Rogen movie, which owes so much to it from the 60s. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You never know. Maybe we will try it.
Maybe.
Maybe
if we're really drunk.
Yeah, there you go. If we drink enough.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're going to be talking today about the episode Hornet Save Thyself. And already I love the title. This aired March 3rd, 1967, written by Don Tate, directed by Seymour Robbie. Now, Seymour Robbie, I know, has directed a couple of episodes of the show, but I don't recognize the name Don Tate.
No, although the name sounds familiar, but not, I don't think from Green Hornet, though. But his name sounded familiar for some reason.
Right. And of note here, just like in the last episode, we've got another Star Trek alumni appearing in this one. This time, Michael Strong playing the character of Dale Hyde. He was in the episode What Are Little Girls Made Of?
He's Roger Corby.
Yeah.
Christine, this can be repaired.
That's good.
Don't cry out suddenly or Ruck may injure you.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's good. It's a great episode.
It is a great episode.
But he's such an odd. God love him, but he's such an odd actor. He's very unique. You know, you can't really say he's like anybody else, but he was a very odd gentleman.
Yeah. I tell you, I'm cards on the table. I loved this story from beginning to end. I mean, we open up right in Britt's living room, which we don't see often enough, and we've got a party going on.
Yeah, there's a party going on.
Yeah, there's a party. Yeah.
Okay, here's what I want to know. How old is Britt?
Good question.
Wait a minute. You didn't count the candles?
No, did you?
No.
Oh.
It's your show.
I thought, wow. If
you did not tell me to count the candles ahead of time, so I didn't.
Wow. Yeah. Well, how old was Van Williams? I'm just thinking, let's go back and we can just say that.
It's a signal right off the bat that, like last episode, I think that we're going to get an atypical episode, and what we really want is we're going to get some personal stuff about Britt. It's as they say, this time it's personal.
Yeah. I don't know. I just loved it. The whole thing there. And we're introduced to the character of Eddie, played by Marvin Brody. Now, Eddie and Britt have beef with each other. They've got a history, and Britt is not happy to see Eddie there. He was brought in by Dale, who felt that it was time that the two patch things up. You know, I wasn't going to say anything about Marvin Brody at all, but then I went and I looked. He's got this lengthy list of credits, including playing the bailiff in the Batman episode The Bird's Last Jest.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have a beef with him. Or rather, I have a beef with his character and with Britt, for that matter. Again, something has been missed here. This is a really cool thing. This is something very personal about the character of Britt from Britt's past, and we get next to nothing on it. I'm trying to remember what the exact deal was between these two. I think it said he was a former employee.
Right.
But no more. Again, we have an opportunity to bring in, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, bring in the thing about Britt's father.
Yeah. No, I'll give you that. You're right.
There's ample opportunity when they dangled that thing in front of our faces a couple times earlier in the show about him being Britt's father being framed, and there was this or that in the past. What a wonderful thing to have this time. What if this guy had been involved in it? He was somehow involved in it and didn't stand up for Britt's father or something like that, and Britt never forgave him for that. I don't think you can do something as strong as have Britt Reed, our shining knight, Britt Reed, holding a grudge against somebody. You'd almost think it's some kind of a setup to fool somebody else, because you wouldn't necessarily believe that Britt was capable of that. But we find out that it is true. And then, of course, to move the things along, the guy is killed. Britt's holding a gun that goes off, and the guy is killed, and he's done and gone. The character's done with him. We don't really get much more about him. He's just the reason now why everybody's after Britt. But a little bit of opportunity missed right there. I really love the setup, love it a lot. But I wish there was a little bit more about to get us to truly believe that Britt really didn't want to see this guy.
I give you that. I'll give you that. And maybe if the show was an hour long, I could see. Because to me, this isn't about their beef. The beef is just the trigger, so to speak, to get the real story going, which is basically Britt on the run. I mean, the whole thing when he even, punches out Scanlon to escape.
I underlined that several times in my notes. That's another one of those things where you think it has to be a setup to fool somebody, because Britt would never do that, right?
Right.
But no, it really happened. He really punched Scanlon, his friend, because Scanlon was being an ass, representing the law. And Britt had to get away from him. And for some reason, Britt seemed to think his only recourse was to deck him. But now, I did say this. I thought Scanlon a little too easily believed that Britt shot the guy.
Yes.
But you have to do this. There's this word again that we used over and over and over during this show, shorthanding everything. Mm-hmm. You have 20 once the commercials are cut out, 20 something minutes, and you have to shorthand these things. You had to get to that point where we could have that great scene of Britt decking Frank, and it had to be because Frank was going to hold him back from leaving. You're stretching it a little bit with Scanlon to I mean, I wish there'd been a little bit more with, I believe you, Britt. But there's got to be something more to this, and we got to look into that, and then say, but in order to do that, you need to stay here, and then you get the punch. But to me, it was just like Scanlon, like, yeah, you did it.
Well, see, I'm going to take it that Scanlon might believe that a little bit more than you do, think that that's possible. To go back to something you talked about early on in the series that you also felt was something they could have developed more about the Hornet. That there are times where he becomes a little too obsessive about things, or to the point, like, I know there was, I forget the episode, you were very annoyed at how he kind of played with Casey to where he, threatened her life, not he himself personally, but through his actions, her life was threatened. And you said that was something that almost like you could see it getting to a point of an intervention with Casey, Cato, and Scanlon all going, you're going too far with this, Britt. You know?
I stand somewhat corrected.
You know,
you're right. And no, that was good that you brought that up. And you're right. And I think I even took it further. I said, wouldn't it have been interesting if they gotten to the point where Scanlon has to turn on Britt and say all out war against, I know what it was. Scanlon it was a case where he had to bring in the Green Hornet. We talked a lot about how can he how can he remain the district attorney when he's failed for years to bring in the Green Hornet?
Yeah.
Well, which really isn't his job. He's the he's the guy that's supposed to defend the city in the court of law. And this is a really good point. And I wanted to, you know what? I'll wait till we get to that point. There's something about that, but keep going with he punched Scanlon and he leaves.
And I forget what it was, but they had to go to. Oh no, because they want to get the gun. They wanted to see the gun and such because it's in police evidence. So. Basically, and here's the thing, we talked about this last episode, you know, what exactly has the Hornet done to make him a criminal? We've just been told, and we've taken it on face value. Now we see him actually doing something criminal because he breaks into police headquarters, takes on, and they make sure there's enough police officers there for the Hornet and, Cato to fight in the whole thing as they're getting the gun.
I hate to be the devil's advocate here. I just want to say I know why they did it, but it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Why the Hornet and Cato wail on these cops is beyond me, because it's really Britt, Reed, and Cato behind the masks.
Right.
But these poor cops are just doing their jobs. The Green Hornet is not really a criminal, and yet they beat the crap out of these guys for no reason other than just a little, subterfuge to get into the evidence locker and get into that. Why? We know why. It's so that we can have an action sequence in this episode. But in reality, why wouldn't he just gas them?
True.
So now these guys have to go home with bruises, contusions, lumps, concussions, whatever else, just because the Britt and Cato wanted to make it look really good or whatever. But I kept thinking, no, they would have gassed them, for real. They would have. There should have been a line something like, remember, Cato, these cops are just doing their job. We're not really against them, and then gas them. He does get to use the gas gun, which we don't. It honestly hasn't really been used a lot.
No.
We saw the Hornet's sting last episode, which was really great. It was a little fudgy to that they say, make it look like we're breaking somebody out of jail.
Yeah.
But they don't really break anybody out of jail, and I don't know what exactly it was that Cato was doing, because he goes into the cells and then he just sort of fiddles around with stuff and then leaves. So really, it still looks like the Hornet was there to go through the evidence locker, not to bust anybody out of jail. I don't know why it would have mattered to Britt, what the cops really think he was doing there. He's the Green Hornet. He's doing something wrong, bad, right?
Right.
But he wanted to get into the evidence locker. Oh well, we don't know why. Okay, all right. I just had to say that.
It's funny. I didn't write many notes here because I actually found I was caught up in the story because I thought it actually was really good. One thing that did stand out to me though, because Hyde takes over the paper while Britt's on the run, and he is writing the story that the Hornet, or that Britt killed, not the Hornet, Britt killed Eddie. And there's that scene between him and Casey where she's like, how dare you, and all this stuff. And you half expect him to fire her because, as we learn later on, he's the one who sets the whole thing up. But instead, he's so calm and reasonable that it throws off suspicion.
Yeah. No, wait a minute. We don't learn later on that we know for a fact that the moment we see him sitting in Britt's chair behind his desk, you know that it's him because he takes over immediately, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Listen, the scene with Casey is wonderful. God bless her that she got something to do and something really good to do.
Yeah.
Defending her boss, defending, someone she believes to be an innocent man. That was really great. But I don't know if Hyde, I agree with you. You would think he'd say, you're no longer wanted here then, Miss Case. But maybe he thought that would tip his hand, too much. He plays it really well. Where if you don't know how these things go in this show, you may not believe that he's got anything to do with it. He does an innocent act pretty well, but it's fairly obvious that that it's him. I guess the question is how did they do it, and then that's what we find out all of that.
Of course, he's innocent. He's Roger Corby.
He's Roger Corby.
Yeah.
This Christine, this can be repaired. No, Roger Corby wasn't innocent.
Well, but he tried to be.
There's another case. See, that's something about this actor, right?
Yeah.
That his very, mild-mannered delivery, hides a mask of evil.
Oh my God. Well, like I said, I don't have anything else because I just got then really sucked into the whole thing and just was enjoying watching it. So I kind of forgot after a while, other than my final rating. What else did you want to talk about this particular episode?
Going back to the Scanlon thing, and this is a good thing. I'm not going to tear it. I'm not going to tear this episode down again. I wanted to highlight something. The scene between Scanlon and the police lieutenant was very good. There was a really interesting point being made there, and I thought it was expressed very well by that actor who played the lieutenant, who we have seen in many other things before. Can't think of his name. I love the part where he says to Scanlon, listen, there's a difference. You see these guys when they're in the courtroom and they're handcuffed and they have all of my guys around them guarding them. Whereas we have to face them on the streets armed. And that was a really, really good point that he was making. And Scanlon did really need to be told that and more or less put in his place.
Right.
Because of that. Because it's like, well, Mr. Cushy Desk Job, you're not out on the streets facing these guys with guns who are trying to kill you or whatever. You only have to stand there when they got 10 cops around them and they're in handcuffs and they're before a judge. I really love that. It was played well, and it's a completely valid point, and Scanlon took his lumps from that.
Right.
As well he should. Scanlon doesn't come off very well in this episode.
No, he doesn't.
No. Which is okay. I think it's okay, and I'm going to go back to as you so rightfully brought up, what I've said in the past, that there is kind of an underlying, edge between Scanlon and Britt, and it could crumble, at some point. You really want to know more about why Scanlon knows the Hornet's identity and how far he can be pushed with protecting it.
Well, see, that's wait, hang on before you.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Like you were talking about at the beginning, the whole history with Eddie and Britt. To me, that wasn't important. What was lost, and unfortunately, we've only got a 2-parter after this. Was that what should have followed afterwards was Scanlon questioning, am I doing the right thing? Because, look at this, he didn't trust me to help him in this situation. He went out on it. I mean, yeah, in the end, we all are laughing and we're all saying, okay, everything's hunky-dory because Britt proved he was right. But so what?
Yeah.
You know, this man's put his entire career
you brought
on the
it up.
line.
I was debating about whether to do this or not. I wrote a little too cheeky at the end.
Yeah. I'll give you that. Yep.
We get our typical it's gleep moment. Do you remember why I call it a gleep moment?
Yep.
Okay. Where, just like you said, everything's wrapped up and it's all hunky-dory and we get to laugh as we're walking out the door kind of a thing. But to me, it's like a guy died for no real good reason. And Britt wasn't happy with that guy, but a guy was killed by a weapon in Britt's hand in his home who didn't deserve to die, only really because this guy just wanted to take over the Sentinel.
Yeah.
But the thing about the tag at the end where we all have to chuckle about Casey's vacation, she gets an hour for lunch, as her vacation.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Oh, but hey, Britt, guy died, are they going to go to his funeral? It's very interesting. And I got to tell you, there was that one, going heading back a little bit, there's that one focused shot of Britt standing in front of the painting of his father. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yep. Sure.
That is
you are.
They hold on that for so long, and you can see, every detail of that painting, and I think that's what really pushed me to bring this thing up again about his father. I feel cheated and robbed, and just to get a hold of, I don't know, Dozier or who was the story editor or whatever, and say why was that even put into the show if you never really intended to go into it?
Right.
Yes, it gives us a little note about Britt's character, but that's just way too little about that. That's too much of something to dangle in front of us and never really explain it. And was there ever any intention to explain it? Hopefully, maybe this is it. I can get it out of my system now, and we don't have to talk about it during the two-parter. But
I think we're going to be talking about a lot of other things during the two-parter.
I think a Green Hornet novel needs to be written about a Hornet, 60s Hornets novel needs to be written by some enterprising young handsome writer.
That leaves me out.
Tell the story of Britt's father.
Yeah. So many. It's we're coming to the end here of the whole series. It's just and just looking back at all the times we said if only. But the thing is, they treated this show like they treated Batman also in that regard. It's like, tell our story, move on. There very seldom did we ever have consequences or things that followed up.
I know.
Even in Batman,
I know.
But here's the thing. We're more forgiving of Batman than we are Green Hornet.
Yeah, yes. And it might be because Batman is overall goofy fun, but I think with being shown that that Hornet was going to be a more serious show,
right? And
yes, I fully realize that at this time, in history, in TV history or whatever, a show like this wasn't necessarily ever going to give us that great a depth of character. But when you bring something like that up about his father more than once, and you have a portrait of his father hanging there in the office, and he gets mentioned and things like that, I think it could have been worked into it more, and because it could have made for a very good pulpy story.
Sure.
That something about that incident comes back to haunt Britt. Yeah. I would have liked to seen him standing there and I don't know, talking to the portrait. Like, like gee, Dad, you're gone, but this stuff is lingering on, or I wish you were here to help me now, Dad, or something like that. I think it could have been done.
Right.
And maybe they thought they would get a second season. I don't know. Well,
I'm sure that, I don't know by this point if they knew that it was in the cards that it wasn't happening, but I'm sure, there was still, as the series was going on, that hope of a second season and such.
Yeah. Yep.
What else have you got? Anything else?
No, that's it. I won't rag on it anymore.
I don't think you're ragging on. I think you're bringing up some valid points. To me, it still doesn't take away from what I enjoy. But I agree with you. I'm not saying. And in fact, like I said, I pointed out, to me, we lost out more in not following up on Scanlon and Britt's relationship being damaged because of this, which to me was more important. But all right, so let's talk about this then. On the scale that we've been using here, must watch, can watch, or pass, where do you place Hornet Save Thyself?
Well, it may surprise you, but I'm going to give it a solid can watch.
Okay.
There is a lot of good stuff going on here. It is an atypical personal story about Britt. Hyde is, he gets the benefit of, it's a fairly interesting character played by an interesting actor. Casey's participation in this. Kato, unfortunately, is not really there. And in fact, he is, if I'm not mistaken, completely absent during the whodunit and howdunit scene at the end.
He is, yep.
And I don't understand that at all. In fact, which is weird because you expect him to be when Hyde pulls the gun and he's got everybody covered and he says that Casey's going with him. You almost expect Kato to suddenly pop up from behind him and do a judo chop to the neck. And I kept saying to myself, now, because I couldn't remember exactly how it was wrapped up, if that happens, it's going to be rough, because then it's like, gee, he's an awful lot like the Green Hornet's masked accomplice, know. So, and it's like, gee, and it turns out that he doesn't. It's like, you're waiting for Kato at any moment, and he's just not there. With no explanation. Was Bruce Lee not available to film that scene? I almost half expected it to be that Kato was on an errand to bring in one last thing that was needed, for that whole thing, and nothing. He's not there. I think he's there at the very end. Mm-hmm. Or no, maybe he's not even there at the very end. I don't even remember. He's not there.
well, now you got me thinking about that. That's another beat they missed anyway, because Kato is with Britt while he's on the run. So he's Britt's valet. Obviously Scanlon isn't going to be rocking that boat, but the police are investigating the whole thing, and you're going to interview the employees, especially the ones who were right there in the house when it all happened, and they're like going, "Where's Kato? We've got to talk to him." And it's like, Kato's gone. Technically, he would be considered an accomplice through this whole thing then.
Absolutely.
If you really put the two and two together of it, but they didn't have, again, the time to do that.
Yeah. I almost suspect that Bruce had maybe for whatever reason some very limited time for the filming of this.
Maybe.
It's really strange that he is not there at that scene at the end. That doesn't seem to make any sense whatsoever, especially since they're going to recreate the party. Mm-hmm. And that he's still not there. I love that whole scene, by the way. I love, and it's been done before in other shows and movies and things like that. You put the culprit in the line of fire, and then he, of course, breaks down because he knows what's going to happen. That, that sort of thing, that cliche. But it's done really well. Britt does tell Casey to go with Hyde. Again, this is one of these, you mentioned it yourself, he's placing Casey in some danger. Because at first he says no.
Right. When
she looks at him. And then he says, yeah, go ahead. Again, I thought, okay, yeah, he's saying go ahead because Kato's just about coming up with the karate chop. And then he's going to, kung fu chop and it's going to be all over with. But no. Editor of the Daily Sentinel actually does some acrobatics himself to take care of the whole thing. But I don't know. That's cool. Van got something to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, it's funny.
But it's a Ken. It's a Ken. I'm giving it a Ken watch.
You're giving it a solid in the middle Ken.
Yep.
Which is what I did last episode. You were Can, but you lean more towards must.
Yeah.
I was solid can in the middle. You're solid can now. This time, I'm not saying can with a lean towards must. I'm saying you, despite everything we said, now, I grant you that. I'm still calling this a must watch.
Okay.
I
can feel your excitement.
I loved it.
It's palpable.
Loved it. I loved watching this episode, and I'm going to even take it a step further. One of the best episodes in the entire series. For me. It's
wow.
All right, aesthetically, after everything we've talked about, can I say that as something overall? No, but for me personally, this ranks up there in my top 5.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the last time I felt like that, and I think it was the Bad Bet.
Yeah.
I think I raved kind of about that. Yeah. So, I'll give it to you.
Yeah. No, I really, in fact, I'm thinking maybe after this I'll just go watch it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Of course. Now, saying all that, unfortunately, now we come to the end, and it's not just the sad ending of the series, but it's this 2-parter that's, it's such, I don't know. It's like the sore thumb. It sticks out so bad, but yet there it is, and it's been a while since I've watched it, so I'm going to go in there. Obviously, we're going to be critical of the things that don't work, but I'm going to desperately look for some things that do work.
Yeah. Well, as soon as you say that title, your hopes skyrocket.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, they went out on a high, we're going to, oh man, and what you could possibly get. So we'll talk about it.
Yep. And that title is The 2-Part Invasion from Outer Space. Oh my God.
Sounds more like a Batman title to me.
Well, you know what? The Joker's Flying Saucer did it better.
Well, you know what? I'm going to be looking for reasons for why it's a 2-parter. That's what I do with these 2-parters.
That's the big thing. It's like
because so many others of these should have been 2-parters, and the 2-parters are generally not enough in them to warrant a 2-parter. So we'll see.
Yeah, they definitely.
We'll see.
And that's going to be next time here on the Hornet Sting podcast, folks. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, Jim. Everyone, take care.
Let's YOLO, Kato. He's Roger Corby.
Yeah.
Christine, this can be repaired.